Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, there's no shame in admitting it. Every once in a while, even we get got. And, you know, if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, influences, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm assuming you do. You're listening to us right now. You can subscribe to the podcast. You can find us over at Amazon, Google, Spotify, Apple, basically wherever you get your podcasts. And plus, we also archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there too, that would be swell. Also, you can follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, video on demand, film festivals, streaming, basically the moving image in general, because that's what we love to write about and talk about it, and we love it when you come read about it. So please come on by and pay us a visit. We got a fun one on this episode. It's a new film that debuted today on Shudder, the Shudder streaming service. If you don't have it and you're a horror fan, I do recommend you go get it. It is a fantastic, fantastic service. But we are sat down, past tense, with writer-director Damian McCarthy about his new film, Caveat, which debuted on the service today. It's the story of a lone drifter who is suffering from a partial memory loss, who accepts a job to look after a psychologically troubled woman in an abandoned house on an isolated island. If that's not a warning sign, I don't know what is. But this is really a fantastic piece of independent, really chilling horror that has it's got some genuine scares. It's got some real sense of humor to it too. It's bent. It's kind of gloriously bent. And we sat with writer-director Damian McCarthy and talked about just his bentness and just making this film, which is it's a lot of fun. It's one of those horror movies that, even if you've seen a lot of horror movies, or if you've seen a lot of horror movies, it's still going to get you. It's got some real fresh surprises in it, and I cannot recommend it enough. Over on the Shudder streaming service, sign up for it today. It's pretty cheap, only $5 a month. It is well worth the money if you are a fan of such things. But I hope you're going to be a fan of our talk with Damian, because it's starting right now. And don't forget to check out his film, because, like I said, it is fantastic. Viewer discretion is advised. I drop a few F-bombs on this one because, quite frankly, it's fucking amazing. All right, well, first off, Damian, just thank you for the time today, man. I really appreciate this.
Thank you very much. Thank you for talking to me.
Now, I mean, congratulations on the movie, because, I mean, I gotta say, it got me, man. Like, it's rare the movie fucking gets me and fucks me up, but this kind of fucked me up. So walk me through sort of the origin of the story, man, because I absolutely loved it.
Great. Thank you very much. Really happy to hear it fucked you up. That's good. So it was, I'd made a bunch of short films, and they had done well at festivals and awards and stuff like this. And they were very, the same kind of thing, a lot of set pieces, not much story, no dialogue, usually featuring some kind of inanimate object that was going to be the centerpiece of the horror. So when it came to making a feature film, it was to kind of take things that interested me like that and just build it out into 90 minutes.
Wow. Okay, cool. And I mean, I just love, I guess, maybe the simplicity of it, because I mean, often horror movies try to sort of overdo it and overcomplicate things. Like, this really almost seemed to go the other way. Like, for you, how conscious was it? Like, how conscious of a decision was it to try to make a story that really was as in many ways possible, very basic, but with some real subtle and sort of, you know, insidious little twist to it?
Yeah, it's interesting to pick up on that. That was always the goal, was to try to make something as simple as possible, and again with as little dialogue as possible, just so the film would travel better and it would be more I guess I would find it more entertaining as kind of a silent horror.
Yeah.
I suppose, to be honest, the original script was a bit more complicated. It went into our Isaac, the main character, went into his backstory a little bit more. There was a little bit more of a lead up to him getting onto the island. But again, you always find this, that once you got into the edit, it was like, well, let's just cut to the chase. Let's just try to get in there as quickly as possible and try to hit. I was always kind of determined to hit that 90-minute mark, to have like a real like an 80s style classic horror movie, something that I did read an interview, actually, or a description of the movie that said it's like a strange lost 80s movie that you just come across randomly one night. And I loved that. I promised to find it again. I love that, because that's exactly, I think, even the way I was pitching it to the investors or to my producer from the start, it was like, I'd like to make something that's just a bit strange, but it's definitely entertaining, and try to keep it simple like that. So when it came to the edit, I found that we had like a 2-hour version of the film, but again, it was just trying to lose as much stuff that overcomplicated it as possible. And there's actually still a little bit of criticism there that people have found the film too complicated. It's like, why do we need all this extra stuff? So I don't know.
No, hey, but to each their own. But I mean, for me, I think I loved, just like you say, the quiet, just sort of the mood. And I mean, it's got such a distinct look to it. Can you talk a little bit just in terms of sort of the visual design of the film? Because I mean, it's like, obviously you're playing in these dark and dingy basements, but just your use of light is so focused and so well done, and it really enhances the entire thing.
So talking to the director of photography, which was Kieran Fitzgerald, he's from Cork, where I'm from, here in Ireland. I kept trying to describe the film as like a ghost story, that everything would be lamplit, that we tried to avoid any reds or greens, this kind of thing, because if you saw an image of a guy walking around with this leather harness on and a long chain, you think, oh, this is going to be a torture porn movie, because they're usually very extreme colors. So I said, if we just keep it looking as pretty and as almost kind of relaxing as possible, it might lull people into this false sense of security, and then it makes a better ghost story then. And Kieran was very brave with the lighting. I mean, sometimes it was just the flashlight and a bounce board, and that was it. He did an amazing job lighting it, but he was also the color greatest on it. So I think he knew what he was getting into. For the actual design of the film in itself, all the peeling wallpaper and the rusty, the whole look of the film was essentially to be one of decay, I guess, because it's supposed to be an island. It's supposed to be this old rotting house on an island, so it really had to look like that. And I'd say 70-80% of it was a set. It was all built, and a lot of it was just from rotting timber or anything that we could salvage to just to put into the film. A lot of that is budget restraints too.
Now, I've got to ask, because I think it's the one thing that hit me the most, just the theme of sort of the hole, and like the hang through the hole and then the saw through the hole, and like, where did that come from? Because I think for me, that was probably sort of the most unsettling thing about the whole film, the thing, like those parts that we almost weren't able to see.
Yeah. But that's, I guess, the best types of horror, is the stuff that you can't see. And
exactly,
that's stuff that's all suspense. That's real. That's everything that would interest me watching a film, or that's the kind of stuff that would make me that would make me very nervous watching a film. And there's a hole in the wall, and a guy's getting closer and closer to look in. Clearly, something's going to jump out at him, or he decides to reach through a dark hole in the wall to get something. Is something going to grab his hand? It's it comes from real classic, real base fears.
Now, I mean, talk to me a little bit about casting on something like this, because I mean, I really do get the sense that everyone has to be on board, like even before you turn on the camera, with sort of the sense and the tone of the story that you want to tell. Like if people aren't necessarily getting it, it's not going to work. It really felt like a film where casting was so important.
Oh yeah, it was. I guess it was. I mean, the film is. I wouldn't say it's comedy horror, but I do think there's a little bit of tongue in cheek at times.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Like if you think of the, I guess the tea cozy over the dead woman's head, and then he looks at it.
That's what fine, he looks back. Me the most. I was laughing and I was terrified all at the same time.
So I found that very funny, right? But just when you say about casting, it's just the way then that Jonathan plays off that. I mean, he takes that so serious. I mean, it's so ridiculous
Yeah.
that this, dead woman is turning this thing around so she can look at him. But he plays it so serious. His face is, it makes me laugh when I see his face because he does genuinely look frightened. And I think that was important that people would, I guess, take it seriously, even though it's a somewhat of a ridiculous premise. I mean, he goes to this island, he gets convinced to get chained up, and he's not allowed to walk around the house. And their argument back and forth, I think, was a difficult one to get the tone of it right. But they did it. They did it brilliantly. And I think Ben Kaplan, who played Barrett, our evil guy who brings him to the island, he was fantastic because he did seem to enjoy it. And even every after take, his behavior seemed very odd. Like there's a part where he takes a lampshade off just a lampshade off the lamp, and he puts it on top of the girl's head. And he just seems to find it funny. And again, it's Jonathan's reaction to this is so, he looks so serious and unsettled by the whole thing. The cast are amazing. Yeah.
There's a genuine perverseness to it all, which really draws the audience in. And I mean, that I really loved as well. And I mean, I'm kind of curious because, like you said, you've done some shorts before, but I'm kind of curious, why was this the first feature? Was it just a timing thing, or was this sort of the initial story that you wanted to try to do in sort of that feature length 90-minute kind of framework?
I suppose like most guys making a first feature film, nobody's really going to give you any money because they haven't seen you do it before. I've made short films, but then it's kind of hard to make that leap from a short film to a feature. So I said, well, it's going to take a lot of work and it's going to take years to get the film made. So I may as well put in things that I'd always like to see in a film. So this was going to be our haunted drumming bunny. I thought that would be cool in the film, leading the girl around the house. A guy in a harness, but a guy who willfully puts it on. I thought that would be a very interesting thing to kind of see him go about his day. I just tried to fill it up with things that if I only ever got to make one film, well, at least they're there and they're done. Now, of course, I had 10 other scripts that I'd also like to make, but it was just, well, this one seems achievable. Now we had a much longer script and way more locations, and we spent, I think, a year and a half trying to get financing for that, but it just wasn't happening. So it came to a point where, well, we either keep trying to raise the money for this, or we just look at the script and just, put a circle around all these scenes and set pieces that we can somehow make visually, that we can put together with what little money we can get and do that. So it was a matter of very quickly rewriting the script once this limited budget appeared, and just really trying to make it happen for that. I think it worked in some ways. In other ways, I can see, well, I wish I'd spent a bit more time on this or developed this part a little better, but I guess you'll always have that. Yeah.
Now, I love seeing the Southland and the Thing poster behind you.
Hey.
It's one of those things where, like, especially in this business, we always come to it as fans first. And I'm kind of curious, thinking back, like, was there a movie or sort of a moment in a movie in your life that was sort of the pivot point that made you go, okay, I want to be a filmmaker, I want to be a storyteller?
My parents had a video rental store, VHS films when I was small, I was a kid. And so I was, by the time I was, 9 or 10, I had RoboCop and Predator and these films memorized. I knew them off by heart. So, but again, that's, 30 years ago. So there was no way, it was impossible to ever think about making films back then. But I just started writing anyway. And I was always writing stuff down. But I think the film that really made me want to do it would have been Evil Dead 2. Nice. That was it. I saw that and I was like, that is just the most creative, entertaining, it was incredible. So after that, I was like, okay, is there any way to actually get a film made? And I started reading about it and learning about it. And there's a bunch then that every I guess year or two then I would have seen something else that would have pushed me on. Like then I think after that I discovered John Carpenter's The Thing. And I think I've watched that once a month for the last 20 years. I mean, it's incredible. Yeah, I just love movies. Even Southland Tales, of course. I mean, that film just didn't work at all, but I love it.
But there was something glorious about it not working, wasn't there? It's
oh yeah,
thing.
It was like nobody really, what was the story that when they tried to make Donnie Darko, nobody got it, and then they released it, and it was like, wow, this is incredible, but nobody understood it, and then he came along with Southland Tales, I know. Well, we don't understand it again, but we didn't understand Donnie Darko, so this has got to be brilliant. We got to invest in it. Game over. Then I think it's. But I did read some article recently that people are starting to rediscover it, and it's claimed back a little bit of its that it's not such a disaster after all.
Slowly but surely, yeah, for sure.
Slowly but surely, yeah.
Now, I mean, I guess just to put a bow on this, and I mean, this is something I'm always curious about because horror always seems to be sort of that entry genre for first-time feature filmmakers, but it's also the genre that allows for the most sort of creativity and the most sort of subversiveness, which I think your film really has a lot of elements that it's mashing into its 90 minutes and really making for a fun ride. And I'm kind of curious, from your perspective, what is it about the horror genre that allows the kind of freedom that you can sort of basically do whatever you want?
Yeah, I guess it's exactly that you can do whatever you want. I mean, for example, in this movie, a woman has to find her dead mother in the wall. If this wasn't a horror movie, you would have to have clues and dialogue and all this kind of thing. But in this film, no, she just picks up a haunted drumming bunny and it shows her where the body is by drumming. It's just you can really let your imagination go with it and do what you want. That's why I love it.
Well, you know what, man? Thanks for making a movie where you can let your imagination run wild and just go with it. And it's a hell of a damn ride. And congratulations again on the film. Like I said, I absolutely loved it.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Cheers, Damian. And thanks again for the time, man. This was fun.
Cheers, David. Thanks a lot.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.